In this video, I'm identifying 9 top wines that sell for around $60, give or take. There should be something for everyone, as there's red, white, and sparkling wines, and these wines come from a multitude of different countries and regions. The first top wine for around $60 a bottle comes from Pessac-Léognan in Bordeaux. I'm talking about Domaine de Chevalier, and this is the 2021 vintage. While 2021 was a bit of a challenging vintage in Bordeaux, certainly compared to 2018 through 2020, this wine was a huge success and is actually one of the better wines in the vintage, despite the fact that you can purchase it for only around $60 a bottle. In fact, it received at least 5 scores between 94 and 96 points from well-known critics, so definitely a very highly regarded wine. This particular wine is a blend that consists of 80% Cabernet Sauvignon, 10% Merlot, and then the rest is made up of Cabernet Franc and Petit Verdot. For those of you who wanted to just pass on 2021 Bordeaux, I think that would be a mistake, as this one is absolutely outstanding and an exceptional buy for around $60 a bottle. The next top wine for $60 or less also comes from the 2021 vintage, but this one's from a little further south. I'm talking about the 2021 Chateau Nerthe Chateauneuf-du-Pape Blanc. While Southern Rhone is known primarily for red wines, there's also some outstanding white wines. This wine, for example, is a blend that consists of 43% Roussanne, 30% Clairette, 25% Grenache Blanc, and there's also a splash of Bourbon in this wine. This fruit is all organically grown, and it comes from 3 different lieux-dits and is ultimately blended together to create the final blend. This is one you can enjoy immediately, so there's no need to wait. But it will also continue to age for at least 8 to 10 years or so there's no rush on it either. Despite the fact that this wine sells for only around $60 a bottle, it's a candidate for one of the top white Rhones of 2021. Certainly the other candidates that are vying for that distinction are much more expensive. Many of them cost more than $100 or so. Sassicaia, the famous Super Tuscan wine, is one of my favorite wines, but unfortunately, that wine has been going up quite dramatically in price the past few vintages. Fortunately, however, the second wine for Sassicaia, which is called Tenuta San Guido Guidalberto, is only around $60 a bottle. This highly regarded wine is made in a similar style to Sassicaia, but it's definitely more approachable and one that's ready to enjoy much earlier than Sassicaia. This particular vintage, the 2021 vintage, is a blend that consists of 60% Cabernet Sauvignon and 40% Merlot. There's normally a little bit more Merlot than this in the blend. However, in the 2021 vintage, Cabernet Sauvignon was particularly strong. According to the Sassicaia winemaker, this is the best vintage of Guidalberto that he's ever made to date. So certainly high praise for this wine. This is a wine that you can definitely age for up to 8 to 10 years or so with no difficulty whatsoever. But in a pinch, you can definitely enjoy it immediately, especially if you give it an hour or two of some air and you enjoy it with a meal. The inspiration for this next wine was Saint-Joseph wines from the Northern Rhone region of France. If you like Syrah like I do, this is definitely a wine that you have to try. The 2017 version of this wine received a perfect 100-point score from Galani. This wine is a hair less than that at 98 points Galani, but still, the 2021 Pax Sonoma-Hillsides Syrah is an extraordinary wine and definitely an outstanding value at around $60 a bottle. Those of you who are curious about this wine may also want to keep an eye out for the 2019 vintage, as I saw some of that in the supply chain for about $10 less per bottle. The fruit for this wine comes from multiple hillside locations in Sonoma, all of which are from cool climate vineyards. The producer also uses 100% whole cluster fermentation for this wine. In most vintages, this wine has a little bit more of a darker fruit profile, but for 2021, there's more of a red fruit profile with lots of freshness and even some floral aromatics and flavors. There's also flavors and aromas that include black pepper, black olive, and wet rock. It's really an extraordinary wine and one that's one of the very best wines being produced in Northern California. Certainly one that I highly recommend at around $60 a bottle. If you're interested in wine recommendations, wine collecting strategies, and learning more about wine, please do subscribe to my channel. I've been collecting wine for more than 15 years and also have a level 4 diploma from the WSET. So I have both formal certification as well as substantial practical knowledge from the School of Hard Knocks. Well, there's a couple other producers from Argentina that get a lot of attention. My personal favorite winery from Argentina is Zuccardi. I visited Zuccardi about 18 months ago, and I was extremely impressed. One of the things that I appreciate most about Zuccardi is that they've changed their maturation process. About a decade ago, they were using high percentages of new oak for their maturation, and that had kind of a negative impact on the wines, in my opinion. But they've changed that dramatically, and now they're using a high percentage of concrete for the maturation of the wines. When Zuccardi does use oak, they're using much larger barrels to mature their wines. And of course, the larger the barrel, the less oak influence on the finished wine. This next wine, for example, was matured in 70% concrete in 30% 500-liter barrels. As a result, there's no new oak that's detectable on this impressive wine, namely the 2021 Zuccardi Fósil Chardonnay. Zuccardi had an outstanding vintage in 2021, pretty much across the board, but their white wines were particularly strong. The fruit for this excellent Chardonnay comes from high elevation sites in the Uco Valley. The ABV percentage for this one is a very modest 12.8%. This is an extremely impressive mineral-driven wine, and if you're a fan of high-quality Chardonnay, I would definitely recommend giving this one a try. Compañía Vinícola del Norte de España, or CVNE for short, is one of my favorite producers in Rioja, and the 2016 Viña Real Gran Reserva Rioja Especial is the next top wine for $60 a bottle. The fruit for this impressive wine comes from Rioja Alavesa, and the 2016 vintage was very strong in Rioja. CVNE's Viña Real has its own winery in Rioja Alavesa. This winery was completely overhauled about 15 years ago and is now state-of-the-art. This particular wine is a blend that consists of 95% Tempranillo and 5% Graciano. It aged for at least 2 years in oak and then another 3 years in the bottle before it was released. As a result, it already has some substantial development, and it's one that you can enjoy immediately, but it certainly does have a long life ahead of it as well, and it will gain additional complexity if you let it age in the cellar. This is an extremely highly regarded wine that received a couple 95-point scores, and it's an excellent buy at around $60 a bottle. The next top wine for $60 a bottle is the 2019 Domaine Paul Jaboulet La Maison Bleue Hermitage. This impressive wine is outstanding in its own right, but it can also serve as a cellar defender for La Chapelle, now that iconic bottling is more than $200 a bottle. This wine is 100% Syrah. The fruit for this wine comes from the east side of the Hermitage Hill, and most of the more expensive and highly regarded wines come from the west side. For that reason, the price for this outstanding wine is still quite reasonable at only around $60 a bottle. This wine is made in the exact same way as the outstanding La Chapelle bottling. They use only around 15% new oak to mature this wine, and as a result, it's not overly oaky. This wine for an Hermitage is one that you can actually enjoy on the younger side. I would recommend that you give it a few additional years in the bottle, but it will cruise in the cellar for a couple decades quite easily. One of my biggest wine problems, especially in the summer, is that I buy more champagne than anything else, but I can barely keep it in stock because it goes so quickly. And so my next top wine for $60 a bottle is the 2014 Deutz Brut Champagne. Deutz is a historic champagne house that traces its roots way back to 1838. The house style is known for elegance and precision with some complexity. This particular champagne is a blend that consists of 62% Pinot Noir, 33% Chardonnay, and 5% Meunier. It aged on the lees for around 4 years or so. You simply can't go wrong with vintage champagne at around $60 a bottle. Indeed, you'd be hard-pressed to find a lot of non-vintage champagne at this pricing. The next top wine for $60 a bottle is the 2019 Solomon Hills Estate Pinot Noir. This is an excellent Pinot Noir that comes from Santa Maria, California. The fruit for this wine is located only about 10 miles from the Pacific Ocean. As such, it's one of the coldest vineyards in the area. This is due to the very extreme cold breezes that come from the Pacific Ocean. The result from this cool vineyard is a fruit profile that I really appreciate. It includes descriptors such as wild strawberry, pomegranate, and raspberry. There's also intriguing floral aromas, flint, gunpowder, and mixed spice. This is definitely one you can enjoy immediately, but I recently enjoyed a 2013 Solomon Hills Estate Pinot Noir that was absolutely exceptional. So you can definitely age it for another 6 or 7 years without any difficulty at all. If you haven't tried a Solomon Hills Estate Pinot Noir, I definitely recommend it. I think you'll be very impressed. For more of my top wine videos at price points ranging from $15 to $75, be sure to check out the pinned comment below.